I'm here outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and I want to talk about my failure at the Hellbender 100-mile race. First off, I want to say that everything about the race was awesome. The course was epic. The race director did a great job. He even spit a freestyle rap at the pre-race meeting, which was hilarious. The course was massive and epic and awesome and challenging and everything I want out of a course. The fellow runners were great. I had some great conversations on the climbs, and yet it was still a failure, and I want to talk about why. The reason was me. The athlete that went into this race was not specialized for this kind of race. You see, only 4 days ago, so only 2 days before the race, we drove up from southwest Florida, southern Florida, where it was 90-degree temperatures, and I was outside landscaping and outside working on the cargo van, converting it into a camper van. And this is post 200-mile race finish only 2 months ago. So I didn't really feel like running long training runs. So I would just do like 3-mile training runs and throw in some body weight squats. And being from southern Florida, it's flat as a pancake. There's no hills, there's no mountains, there's no 1,000-foot climbs, let alone 3,000 or 4,000-foot climbs to train on. So I was throwing in body weight squats in the middle of my 3-mile run and thinking, well, it'll work. But I think the key to success with ultra running, and I've managed to get away with kind of winging it and based on like sheer grit and determination to finish some of these races. But when it came to an epic masterpiece like the Hellbender 100 out here with these 3,000 and 4,000 foot massive climbs, specialization of training was key to succeeding in this race. And I had the exact polar opposite of the conditions that I was training in versus the conditions in which I was attempting to race and finish a 100-mile race. So we drove up 14 hours or so to get up to the race near Asheville, North Carolina in the Black Mountains from Old Fort. Great race location. Camp Greer was a beautiful location to have the start line. And it was cold. It was 60 degrees or so in the day. You can see I'm still not used to this temperature. I'm still bundled up. And we slept there in the night in our van, which is insulated, but we don't have a heat source. So I just had one blanket on me, and I ended up getting really chilly in the night, which I like to sleep kind of cold, so it kind of felt normal. But then with a 5 a.m. start, got up at 4 a.m. and all my clothing was cold. So I put on my warm clothing and I was internally chilled. So I bundled up, put 3 layers on my upper body, 2 layers on my lower body, had thick gloves on, full hat on, and made it out to, thick socks on too. I had two layers of socks with big, like fluffy, fuzzy socks. And I get out to the start line and all the other racers are wearing shorts and a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt with some thin gloves. And I'm like, oh man, these guys are used to this temperature. They're probably used to even colder training through the winter, whereas I'm used to the 90-degree Florida weather. So I start running and I still have that internal chill in me. And I start running fast to try to warm myself up. And what ended up happening is the worst possible thing. And this is my main number one reason why I think I failed at the Hellbender 100, is because I was internally cold through the whole run, the whole 8 hours that I ended up being out there running on the course. And to combat that, I was going at a fast, aggressive pace, and yet I wasn't trained to be efficient on this kind of course. So I was burning a lot of calories, wearing myself down to warm myself up. And on the first mountain climb you were going up to 5,200 feet or so to the Blue Ridge Pinnacle. And by the time I got up there, I'd sweated, perspired through my 3 layers of clothing, through my 2 lower layers. My gloves, these thick gloves, are soaking wet with sweat. Like, I'm usually an extremely efficient, low sweating runner. I'll be running next to people. I'll be breathing less exhausted than the person next to me, and I'll not even have any sweat on me, and they'll be sweaty. But in this, it was exact opposite, where these conditions just wore me out. So when I got to the top of that first climb, up to like 5,200 feet, Blue Ridge Pinnacle, I was a sweaty mess, and I started feeling like my body was having trouble with blood sugar. So the first number one reason I think I failed in Hellbender 100 was the drastic temperature swing. To go from the 90-degree temperature in southern Florida to what was like 36 degrees at the start, and internally being chilled, and having to work really hard to warm myself up, and being really inefficient at this kind of terrain, to be climbing up 3,500 feet in that first steady, sustained, difficult climb. So the temperature issue, the internal temperature issue, is the first reason. The second big reason, I think, was I had done all those bodyweight squats, but I didn't work my calves. So my quads and my glutes were in great shape to power me up that long, sustained climb, but my calves were on fire. They were burning. And I would realize at the time, I was like, that was a big mistake to ignore my calves. And in fact, I later talked to Andrew Barrett, who's a very experienced ultra runner, and he said, typical flatlander mistake. Just ignore your calves, forget your calves, like they don't even exist, and then go out and try to run up on these tough hills, and your calves just get destroyed. And so that really made me suffer badly. Like, that was part of probably the reason I was so inefficient at that mountain climb that wore me out. And then so the third reason was I started feeling really dizzy. I started getting vertigo, is what I call it and describe it as, but the doctor that was at the aid station when I finally decided, you know, I'm going to DNF, I'm going to be out here, she wanted to make sure I was okay, that I wasn't going to end up in the hospital. So she was checking me out for like vertigo, dizziness, and we kind of came to the conclusion that I was just so ill prepared for these race conditions that my body was just having like blood sugar issues, and that's why I was getting dizziness. But it got to the point where I would get to the top of that first climb, I felt like I was spinning around in circles, and you don't want to be, just for your own safety, you don't want to be like feeling like you're spinning like vertigo when you're up 5,000 feet up and you're doing a mountain race, and there's some like sheer cliff drops, you know, not as much as I've seen in a few other races, like Badwater Salton Sea. If I was feeling vertigo and dizziness in that race, I might have died, fallen off a cliff, and that would have been the end of me. But in this race, I made it to the first massive climb, Blue Ridge Pinnacle, feeling pretty dizzy near the top, and it made it down okay. And tried to down more calories to take it in, but I was just a sweaty mess and so inefficient that by the second big climb, which is about 2,500 feet up, and I don't know the name of the top of that climb, but I was feeling even worse. My vertigo, I was spinning, the dizziness, I was spinning. So for those three reasons, the temperature, coldness that I was feeling, the inefficiency, like my calves, the way that they were not performing, they weren't trained to perform, and they were not helping me. They were screaming agony on those tough mountain climbs. And then the dizziness, the spinning. I decided at mile 31.8, I think it was aid station 5 or 4, I'll have to look it up. I decided to call it there. And the biggest thing was the race was only going to get tougher. This is exactly what I wanted, though. I wanted to, in ultra running, flirt with the limits of human potential. And I think that a different version of me, a well-trained, well-prepared, well-conditioned for the specific challenges of this race, would have performed very well out there. And looking to the future, when I look at all the 100-mile races in the eastern half of the United States, this one stands out to me. This is the one that I cannot see myself, as long as I continue running these ultra races, I cannot see myself letting this one go. This one was really, truly special. There were some beautiful purple flowers that I was seeing. At the top of that Blue Ridge Pinnacle, I could see the Blue Ridge Mountains the Appalachian Mountains in the distance. It was beautiful. Some great forest, beautiful green forest. And that climb was epic. I can't wait to try my hand at another one of these tough mountain ultra races. And I guess my next one is High Lonesome out in Colorado. So it'll be almost this exact type of elevation change with these massive climbs, and yet lifted up in altitude, starting around like 10,000 feet. And so instead of starting around like 2,000 feet and climbing up to like 5,000, 6,000 feet, I'll be starting at 10,000, climbing to 14,000. The difference is that in August, when I'm running High Lonesome, I will have months of specialized training behind me. I won't be going from 90-degree Florida temperature with only flat weather to going to this kind of challenge. Instead, I'll be out there training for this specific event. So I failed at the Hellbender 100, my first DNF in the 100-mile race, my first official DNF, because I did drop down to the 50-mile distance in one of my 100-mile races. But this is my first official failure, DNF. And I don't really look at it as a failure though, because I had a great time. This race was so well executed, so well planned out. I've got a lot of respect for the race director, all the volunteers, all the other runners out there. I just wish that the Cortland wheeler that had shown up to this race had been more specialized for the conditions. And I would love to come back and try it again next year. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions about my race out there at Hellbender 100, you can ask in the comment section. You can like, subscribe, and thank you.